What's up, everyone? Zane here with another episode of Everything Vive. Today we got another exclusive interview for you guys. This one is with Dominik Hildner, one of the members of the team behind Quanero. It is a free game, a free experience that you can download on Steam. Dominik played a crucial role, and I'll let him get into it in the interview along with the rest of his team. I've played it, Ronnie's played it, and we have both been totally blown away by the experience, the narrative, everything about it. So we can't recommend it enough to you guys. And again, it's a free experience, so you really can't lose out on this. We'll make sure to have a link to the game in Steam. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the interview. Let's get started. Dominik, how's it going, man?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on today.
No, we are so excited about it. Ronnie and I are here, and we've both had a chance to play Quanero, and it's so cool, man. It's so cool. That's
cool. Thank you.
So, well, I guess we can just jump straight in. I usually start asking the inspiration behind the game, but I know it sounds like there were a couple people on this team. So if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more and what you've done and your contribution to the game or experience.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Dominik Hildner, and I worked on Quanero as an environment and texture artist. And I was part of the team from the beginning and more or less, designed the whole thing, also the visual parts of the game. And I was also working on the characters, and yeah, that's my part.
Okay, that's very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously, in a narrative experience like Quanero, I think the atmosphere and the environment plays a big part in the immersion that you get from doing it in VR. Was there any particular challenges of creating an environment in VR versus just creating a 3D environment for another game or another purpose? Or was there anything that you had to tweak because people were able to look at things more closely or stuff like that?
Yeah, of course. One big problem was that we couldn't use some volumetric lights and light effects that easily because in virtual reality, everything is rendered stereoscopically. So you can't just use planes with textures mapped on them to simulate light beams and stuff like that.
Okay.
And fog in the bar, this was really difficult to achieve after all.
So how did, if you weren't able to use volume, how were you able to do the fog effects and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, actually there I teamed up with a programmer, and we created some planes, a bunch of them layered up, which are adjusting to the approximate direction the viewer is looking at from. And this worked out really great, but at first it was awful.
Yeah, because that sounds like it's so different from how you would normally do fog. And as far as, I mean, I don't know all of the specifics, so I'm not sure how you can get. But as far as lighting, the little I do know in VR, it's best to bake in the lighting, or how?
Yeah, of course.
So how is that different?
Yeah, we baked nearly all the lights in. So we had, I guess, only one active light source, and the rest was all baked into the maps.
And
because we always had. Pardon?
Oh, I was going to say, and especially with the environment that you created, it's very Blade Runner, neon light inspired. I'm sure that made things extra difficult for your team.
Yeah, it was kind of exaggerated, of course, and yeah, when you look on the area outside, we got really bright light from one direction, so that we had to make one light active, so the characters and all the moving stuff, because of the explosion happening out there, we had a lot of problems with the small pieces of debris flying around, and shadows were quite difficult to achieve as well.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, from my perspective, someone trying the experience. Everything was very seamless. I didn't notice anything, different from the way you guys. So obviously, you were able to make it work well.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess I don't know how much you would know about the narrative sides of Quanero and how that came about, but I did think it was really interesting that, you know, I mean, in general, I'm very interested in narrative in video games, and virtual reality obviously opens up, you know, new possibilities in that front, because it's, you know, the user has quite a different involvement. I don't know if you could talk about, you know, why your team decided to focus on virtual reality within, you know, the narrative scope that you chose versus just, I mean, how different is Quanero within VR versus, you know, just experiencing it just on a normal monitor, and kind of what was some of the inspiration from the team on that regard?
Yeah, when we started the project, we had in mind that we wanted to tell a story where you can be part of the world the story is happening in. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make it possible for the user to experience the story as if he were there for real. Mm-hmm. And of course, in VR, you got the possibility to look around and look in every direction you want to, mm-hmm. and feel some kind of presence in the world where you are in. Mm-hmm. And with our story set, where so much things happen at the same time in different locations, mm-hmm. We thought about it kind of like a big picture where a lot of different stories happen, mm-hmm. and the user can move through this world and look in all directions and look at the details and all the different characters happening there. So with virtual reality, we felt a much smoother way to do that. So much more natural when you really can go through a scene like that.
Cool. Just out of curiosity, how many people were on the team? And if you want to go ahead and just maybe introduce all of them and let us know what their roles were.
Yeah, of course. We had all in all 9 people working on. And we had 2 guys who did all the recordings and all the soundtrack and the sound programming. We had 2 guys doing the programming and the developing part most of the time, and 1 guy was responsible mainly for the character animations and all the motion capture stuff, and the rest of us worked on the explosion and on the environment. So we got a pretty big team of 3D artists and not that many programmers on the project, actually.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, you know, since VR is new for everyone, you know, people are trying to figure out what types of experiences work best in VR, and you see a lot of experimental, you know, projects out there. You see some, especially kind of on the more casual VR side, like in Samsung Gear VR and those types of products, you see kind of a push for some of the 360 video content and stuff like that. I've at least so far, I haven't been super impressed with a lot of the 360 video stuff, because I don't really think the fidelity is quite there yet to make you feel like you're really actually in an environment. But with an experience like Quanero, actually modeling the environment and then being able to have a player, you know, move more freely, I think it makes the experience a lot more involved and a lot more, I mean, for lack of better words, immersive. So I didn't know, I mean, if you could share some of your experience just in terms of VR, generally speaking, what are some of the other types of experiences that you may have tried in VR, and I mean, do you see much more potential with, you know, the 3D world building and creating 3D environments rather than, you know, the video content that some people seem to be pushing?
Yeah, the problem I've got with all this pre-rendered 360 video stuff is that the player himself can't really move, mm-hmm. and can't explore the world. And I guess that's one of the strengths we showed 3D environments can do. Mm-hmm. When you really can make a step forward, and you're actually moving. Your position is moving, and you can choose for yourself where you want to stand, and you not get this stuff dictated by some cameraman or some pre-rendered position. Mm-hmm. So I played a lot of other VR games, and a lot of them are they're just really stationary there. So you're just standing in one point and looking around in some of them. And that's something we didn't want to do because we thought this wouldn't really use all of the potential mm-hmm. of VR.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm kind of curious as to, I mean, obviously you created, most of the art assets for Quanero, probably, yeah. From scratch or from, existing asset, like, you were the artist behind a lot of that stuff. I'm curious. I mean, do you see people importing objects, importing environments, that kind of thing, in order to maybe, approximate an experience like Quanero, with maybe less work or less, less art side involved versus, because I'm just kind of curious, because I totally agree with you. I mean, an experience like Quanero is so much better because it's in a 3D environment than a lot of these other videos, but it seems like at least some of that other content is created the way it is because, it's probably easier and a lot quicker to do. And do you see kind of looking from a technological side, do you see there being any possibility of kind of doing a little bit of both, the 3D work, artistry were required and kind of somehow capturing environments with cameras and that sort of thing to make the process easier? Or did you guys look into doing anything like that? Or
yeah, on this concern, I got two ideas. We will also probably do in the future. One of them is there are a lot of assets available on stores like on the Steam store or also on Unreal store, where you can actually purchase models and environments and you can put them into your experience. And the other one is some kind of photogrammetry where you make a lot of pictures from environments or from assets and then generate a 3D model out of those pictures. But the problem with these techniques, I guess, is that you are more or less restricted to things somebody else has made for you. So if you want to get unique and get creative and do stuff no one has done before, or if you want to set your own scene up, I guess you always will need to model stuff and you will need to work on this art side by yourself. I guess that's something nobody can and really do for you. So
no, that makes sense.
That's my point of view on the topic.
Just curious because I know Quanero was, a single kind of like a concept project for you guys. It seems.
Yeah.
What are your? Did you come up with plans to make anything else in addition to that, or expand what's the future looking like for Quanero and the team?
Yeah, actually, we at the beginning we thought it will be some really experimental stuff, and as we finished, we really were extremely happy with the outcome, and even more when we put it on Steam and the responses were quite fantastic.
Yeah, I think we had heard of your project. I think maybe from an Upload VR article or somewhere else. We had kind of gotten wind of it, and when I heard about it, I instantly thought it sounded like something I was personally really interested in VR. I mean, a narrative experience. I like sci-fi personally. It just sounded like something very, very interesting. And I think the first time I tried it, I thought it was so cool how you boot it up, and as a first time user, you really don't know what to focus on. So you just take in the environment and you're getting the hang of the controls. And okay, I understand. This trigger makes things move forward. This trigger makes things move backward. And once you start playing it and the explosion happens, the explosion is kind of the first, okay, now I understand. So I'm going to need to figure out, what led to this explosion, or, and your brain starts trying to divide up the scene based on that context of, okay, we know this big event here happens, and now how do all these little side stories, so to speak, kind of tie into that. And I just thought that was really neat, because the way you guys set it up, and the place you put the player to, kind of experience that, because I mean, the player can move around however they like, but I think the place where you put them in the proximity to when the explosion occurs is set up just right, so where, they're not really focused on it, just like characters in the environment wouldn't be focused on that area, because they're just, in their own worlds, doing their own thing, having their own conversations. And then out of the blue, bam, that happens kind of to the side of you, and, super surprising, and oh my gosh, and immediately, the debris flying everywhere. And I mean, that's one of the first things when you see that explosion happen, and you get to, rewind it and play it out in slow motion for the first time, and you just realize how well everything was done with. Like, I thought it was really well done how you put so much detail into the cook that's near the center of the explosion, so that there were a lot of small objects and a lot of geometry that when that explosion happens, not only do you have, the cement from the bottom kind of, going in every direction, but you have all of those little objects that you get to go and look at closer in detail later, just like, going everywhere. And it's just really interesting. So I just wanted to...
Ronnie had a fantastic time with the game.
Thank you. Yeah, we wanted to start off with the game in a really spectacular way, so to say, to really make a kind of wow moment at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So actually, what you mentioned, you can really try out the mechanics, the controls, played back, played forth. With the explosion, it works just fantastic, because you see immediately in which direction you're going, and you can really get a feeling for the kind of controls. So that was our idea behind the placement of the player. And also, you don't start at the beginning of the story. You start kind of in the middle, shortly before the explosion happens. Mm-hmm. And we also wanted to enforce the player to go further back and experience all the scene. So,
yeah, no, that was a really cool aspect of it. Just out of curiosity, how long did it take you guys, or how long was the game in development for before, just I guess inception to release? What was that time period like?
Yeah, we started in summer 2015. Then we had the initial idea and thought about how cool virtual reality is and what we wanted to do. And the first half year was quite, I'd say, not so dense in work time, because we worked more on the concept and on the story. And after that, we had 20 weeks of really intense work, where we got all the props done, and all the environment and all the characters. And basically, after 20 weeks of hard work, it was finished, more or less. Of course, we are still working on it, on parts of the experience, because we had to adjust some things for the wife in the end as we released it. And now currently we're working on a version for the Oculus consumer. And yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And was the 9-person team, were you guys all together from the start, or did you add people kind of as you went?
Yeah, from the start we were a little smaller, but as we kept on going, we felt the need for another programmer, and we were really happy to make such a great catch with him. And yeah.
Well,
it was quite cool. It was a good experience.
After you develop a version for Oculus, just looking forward, is there anything else that you guys have on the horizon, or are you going? I'm just curious if you're planning to add on to what the Quanero experience is right now, or if you're looking to maybe dive into another project, something similar, or just I'm just curious what the future of the team is and where you guys go from there. If you guys have discussed that.
Yeah, sure. We thought about that for quite some while. And as I said before, I and also the whole team really likes the mechanics of the game and how you can play with time as a narrative element, because you just don't tell a straight story, but you can also manipulate what can be seen at which time, and you need to figure out new ways of leading the player to the parts of the story that are important to you and that you want to tell. So we really like that concept, and currently we're talking about a follow-up project which will probably focus on the same mechanics, but we are aiming to tell different story, of course, and we want to get the player more involved in what happens. We want them to be attached and attracted to the characters, and to kind of make it more a personal thing. That's what we are looking for.
That sounds like it would be really complicated, based on what, because it's one thing. It's one thing to be a bystander to the events. And it's another thing, I think, to be able to interact with some of those events and influence. That sounds really, really fascinating.
Yeah, we are thinking about what we can do in the next year or two, but yet it's nothing fixed or set up yet. So
sure,
we're just figuring out what we.
And in general, it sounds really. It's also a fascinating. I'm sure it's very rewarding from your perspective to. Be able to design a game to where you kind of subtly, lead players in certain directions, and at the same time give the player a real sense of discovery in the same side. Because I definitely, looking back at it in retrospect, I know that I was being led, somewhat to some of the events based on timing and so forth. But definitely, when I was in the experience, I felt like I was an investigator. I was the one that was coming up with where I should look next and how things should. So I think that's a very cool and very, very exciting type of gameplay system.
Yeah, and if
that's.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to add one point. So these moments when you experience or when you get some of the clues right and figure out what happened. It's kind of reward is basically, I guess, the best feeling you can have in the experience. So you feel really like a detective, and you got all the clues right and figured out a little aspect of the game. So that's the reward we can give the player for looking closer to the things.
Yeah, no, just to piggyback off of what Ronnie was saying earlier, I mean, this is probably one of the most unique experiences that I've seen in VR, and just across all the games and types of games, and even just experiences in general. Quanero definitely has a very unique facet to it, which is the ability to go back and forth in time. So, if you guys were to come up with something, the first thing I can think of, which you guys are totally free to take the idea, but it's more so like you see so many of these puzzle solving games, but to add the element of being able to go back and forth in time and then solve a puzzle seems like just that being able to travel back and forth in time would add an element to so many of the other games that are out right now, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with us, man. We really appreciate it. Is there a place that people can go to connect with you guys? Obviously, we're going to link to the game on the Steam store. But is there a way that people can connect with you, ask questions, or I guess this is the time for shameless self promotion. So please feel free to let people know.
Yeah, great. So of course, we're happy to answer any questions and any comments on Steam, which is more or less our main channel. But also we got a website running where you can look up all the team members and you can get in touch with us there if you want to. And if you want to follow me especially, the most stuff I share is on Twitter. So if you want to get in touch with me, Twitter would be the place to be, I guess. And yeah, of course, we keep you updated on following stuff.
Awesome. Well, what's the Twitter handle?
It's Hildner, like my last name, and an underscore.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well, then, just so people will be easily able to connect with you.
Yeah, great.
Well, yeah. Ronnie, did you have any other questions?
No, I think that's good. Thank you so much. It's very interesting, and like I said, I really liked Quanero a lot, so I'm very excited to see what you guys work on next.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. The talk. It was great.
Of course. Well, thank you again. And yeah, we look forward to seeing whatever you guys have coming up down the pipeline, because like I said, it's a very unique experience. And for anyone listening right now, can't recommend it enough. It's probably one of the coolest things you can do right now in VR. So Dominik, thank you again for being on the show. We appreciate it. And we hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you. See you then.